Los Buenos Cafés, the brown berets born in the barrios of southwest United States, emerged as a fighting force to break down barriers of social, educational, and government repression, voicing their concerns throughout the 1960s regarding job opportunities and equal rights in the Hispanic community all around the United States. Carlos Montes, David Sanchez, and so many others fought for the self-determination of their people throughout educational and social programs, and against police brutality and the war in Vietnam. Today, Latinos don't wear the brown berets, which symbolize their history, but their fight for justice and equality continues with the same power and determination. The land of California for centuries have been home to the Aztec and other native tribes. But when Mexico signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, nearly all the territory of American Southwest was given to the United States. Hispanics who decided to stay were granted citizenship. In California, during the gold rush, white miners incited violence and injustice towards the Hispanics, begrudging their wealth that had come from the mines. According to historian William D. Carrion, mob violence against Spanish-speaking people was common in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He estimates that the number of Latinos killed by mobs reached well into the thousands. Latinos were segregated into urban barrios and barred entry into Anglo establishments, and Latino students were barred from equal education. By the 1940s, as many as 80% of the Latino children in places such as Orange County, California, attended segregated schools. The schools were often run-down, bare-bone facilities which lacked the basic supplies and teachers. Many school counselors urged students to take vocational classes. In 1945, Sylvia Mendez set a precedent by challenging the barrier to education. On March 4th, her parents, Gonzalo and Felicidad Mendez, along with 3 other Mexican-American families, filed a lawsuit in federal court in Los Angeles against 4 Orange County schools to desegregate a case known as Mendez v. Westminster. On January 19, 1948, Sylvia entered a desegregated elementary school. But even though this educational barrier was broken, in fact, school segregation continued. By the 1960s, amid these conditions which barred Mexican Americans from accessing the American dream, rose a group of young Chicano revolutionaries fighting for self-determination, among them Carlos Montes. Montes grew up in the barrios of Southeast LA. At school, Montes became the butt of many racist jokes. Montes went to East LA College in 1967, where he became involved in the Mexican American Student Association, which saw using education as the solution to injustice. He also began working as a youth center director in Lincoln Heights area of East Los Angeles. It was here Montes became associated with David Sanchez and Eliza Risco, who had started La Raza newspaper, and the Young Chicanos for Community Action, YCCA. He was drawn to the more active and direct approach of the group, which soon became known as the Brown Berets, and fight against a long history of injustice against the Chicano people in the United States. He claimed the Southwest as Aztlan, the original homeland of the indigenous Aztec ancestors and founders of Mexico City. We were from poor working-class families growing up with the racism and police abuse. Montes and the Brown Berets met at La Prerana Coffee House, established by David Sanchez at the headquarters for the YCCA, to discuss police brutality and inequality in the school system. Sal Castro, a social studies teacher at Lincoln High School, encouraged the students who met with the YCCA to hold what they call a blowout, a walkout. The Brown Berets called for a strike in March 1968. Propaganda broadsides were printed, designed to persuade students to abandon the classes. By Tuesday, March 5th, the blowouts began when Carlos Montes and the Brown Berets ran into Lincoln yelling, "Walk out, walk out!" Joseph Rodriguez, a sophomore at Garfield High, recalling sitting in biology class when someone banged on our wooden doors, yelling, "Walk out, walk out!" The students and teachers ran to the window to see what was going on. Students were hemorrhaging through gates into surrounding sidewalks and streets. Sheriff's deputies in riot gear arrived, and over bullhorns ordered them back to class. Most refused. The next day, the blowouts arrived in Lincoln High School. Brown Beret, Vicky Castro, occupied the principal's office at Lincoln while others fanned out across campus and encouraged students to leave school. Then the blowouts moved to Roosevelt High. Vicky Castro had driven her old alma mater to lead them. When administrators recognized her, "Vicky, if you come on campus, I'll have you arrested," she said. Undaunted, Castro drove to the other side of Roosevelt High, where she joined other activists inciting students to walk. A brief clash with police resulted in several arrests. Students walked out at Belmont the next day. Protest plans spread by word of mouth and by messages written in marker on the grout between tiles. Walk out today, 12:30. The unrest continued for weeks, and protests erupting at other campuses. It is estimated that 15,000 to 22,000 students participated in the walkout. The Berets used the momentum of breaking the educational barriers spread throughout the country. We also supported the land movement in New Mexico of the Chicano small farmers and ranchers. We marched with the First Rainbow Coalition and Poor People's Campaign in Washington, D.C. in the summer of 1968. On March 23, 1969, presented by Chicano activist leader Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez, was attended by 1,500 Mexican-American youths from throughout the United States. In the aftermath of the walkouts, the organizers rejoiced in support of the high-profile leaders, including Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy, who was in California to meet Cesar Chavez. Law enforcement responded with undercover operations, raids, and arrests. On June 13th, activists including Montez, Sanchez, and Sal Castro, the only teacher to publicly participate and back students' complaints to the news media. They were indicted on charges including conspiracy to have planned the walkouts. Each faced 66 years in prison. Sal Castro lost his job, but was eventually reinstated after months of protests by East Side parents. In years to come, the East Side would be the site of protests and immigration policy. The impact of the Brown Berets stretched into the other social programs like El Barrio Free Clinic. Chicano had previously been a derogatory word used by Mexican and Mexican Americans in the U.S. for individuals who were poor and recent immigrants to the United States. But through the Brown Berets breaking down barriers of education in the 1960s and 1970s, Chicanos reclaimed the word in order to signify that their indigenous ancestry and culture were important to them. Today, people in this community are still terrified of police officers, especially in the light of violence surrounding immigration and discrimination that still exist. And incidents like the one on August 30th, 2018, where actress Vanessa Marquez was fatally shot by police in her South Pasadena, California home. This only fueled the fear. A month after her tragic death, Dr. David Sanchez, wearing his own brown short-sleeve button-down shirt, brown pants, and brown beret, "We are opposed to laws that do not protect our people," Dr. Sanchez said on September 29th, the day of the protest. The Brown Berets do not exist as a group today, but the quest for self-determination still exists to several Latino groups, including Mi Gente and Movimiento Cosecha, which embody the organizational strength of the Berets. Carlos Montez and the Brown Berets were part of building the Chicano movement for self-determination through education, which broke barriers and raised the slogan of Chicano Power. It ignited the movement for cultural awareness and pride in our Chicano history, in the Southwest of Mexico, and our culture and language.